Okay, good morning. Let me make sure all this is working. Looks like it's working. Do you have your coffee? This is coffee chat, so you need your coffee. All right, I think we're live here and there, and that's looking good. All right, cool. I can cut that part off. Well, good morning. I already got stuff falling everywhere. Hey, my name is Jonathan. I am a family therapist. I am an addictions counselor, and I'm the one who runs the group on Facebook that you may be a part of, the Parents of Adult Children Failure to Launch. And once again, in the morning, I'm remembering I did not put the links in the comments. So I'm going to do that right now. I think I am. And all right, let me do this again. And I want to apologize. I got some feedback that my audio was very, very low the last 2 days that we did this. And I went back and looked at it, and absolutely it was. And there was like a little glitch. It took me a while to figure it out. But now we have good audio. So if you had it turned up yesterday, you might be blowing your ears out today. So turn that down. Okay, so here is, I just wanted to put the links in here to the Facebook group and the also the email list. And why am I bringing those two up? Well, the Facebook group is, there it is, okay. The Facebook group is a wonderful community, right? It's a wonderful community to get connected and feel supported, get connected with other parents who have adult children who are struggling, right? Whether it's failure to launch or some other type of struggle. But it's basically these situations where parents feel that they're in a reality where their child is struggling, and in some way the parents are trying to find that balance. Like, how do we support them without enabling them? How do we set boundaries without pushing them away? And so there's a lot of different reasons people are in that group, but the commonality is everyone has an adult child, or some of them, they're older teenagers, but they are struggling and they're looking for support. And that's a great community. We do teachings and trainings, and I haven't gotten on that group to apologize because we did not do our talk last night. I'm going to do that tonight, but we had some big storms come through, zero power, zero internet, and I tried to do what I could, even generating some electricity, but the internet it wasn't even just at our house, it was everywhere. So I was not able to go live, but thankfully here at my office, we got power. So we're able to do this. So the email list is also a really good place to get connected. But when you get on the email list, when you subscribe to that, I will send you tools that really help understand what's going on with your kid, and how to have the conversations that you need to have. And this comes out of my work as a therapist for years and years and years, working with families, primarily with teenagers and young adults who are stuck. They're really struggling and they're not moving forward. So it's really just sharing how to do that, how to get connected, how to move forward. So that's what it's all about. But this morning is just a time to chat and to talk. So if you're watching this live, or if you're watching it afterwards, and I know most people watch it afterwards, welcome, and get your beverage. If it's not coffee time when you're watching it, then get what you need. So here's what I want to talk about today. Here's what I want to chat about. I want to chat about conversation stoppers, right? So what do I mean by that? Conversation stoppers. Well, Every family has experienced this. Every relationship has experienced this, right? You're trying to talk about something that is very important, and the conversation stops, right? It breaks down. It doesn't move forward. So here's a question right in the beginning. What is a conversation stopper in your family, in your relationship, right? What are the reasons? What are the moments that conversations stop, right? They break down. So let me give you a little background to why we're talking about this. It starts with just the understanding that things, for whatever reason, aren't happening the way they need to, right? You want your young adult child to move forward. You want them, your adult child, to be able to figure things out, right? There's things that they need to be doing. There's things maybe they've promised. There's steps, things that are happening that are not the way you want it to be, right? You know, whatever it is, it's just not moving forward. It's stuck. And there's these times where you need to talk about it, right? You need to talk and say, okay, let's talk about what's going on. You know, you said you were going to do this. You haven't done this. We said this was going to happen. It hasn't happened. We said this wasn't going to happen anymore. And it's happening again. And you need to have a conversation. You need to come up with a plan. You need to move things forward. And that's really the mechanism of moving things forward, is being able to talk and communicate. And I spend a lot of time on this in the group and my workshops and trainings. It's about keeping the conversation going, right? But for whatever reason, it doesn't happen. It breaks down. So let me give you a couple examples of these. And if some of them resonate with you, let me know. You know, give me a thumbs up. Give me a comment of how it happens with you. But one is anger, right? A lot of them are emotions, right? It's emotions on some level. But you try to talk about something and they get very angry. And you might even be thinking, like, I am not going to get into a fight with them again. I am not going to do this. And their anger is so extreme that it's not productive to move forward. Or maybe you back away, right? You're not going to have it. So anger is a common one. Or they just get really emotional. I see this all the time, even in the therapy sessions, right? That you're having the conversation, and you know, parents are talking to their adult child, and they start getting really anxious, right? They start getting even really down. They get very quiet. They get emotional. Maybe they start crying, you know. And so it might be anger, but it can be the whole range of emotions. And when those emotions get big enough, right, it becomes overwhelming. And a lot of times what I see is parents that they either get frustrated, right then they get really frustrated that they are, that the conversation is starting to break down. It's starting to get in that cycle again. And so maybe the parents will respond with their own emotion, or the parents will back off, right? Because it's just getting too much. And so they back down and the conversation stops, right? Or sometimes it's just a flat out shutdown. Has that happened with you, right? The shutdown where you talk to them and it's dead silence, right? Or they give you the, I don't know, whatever, you know, there's like nowhere for the conversation to go. It just stops. They're not talking. They're not participating in it. Or they just walk away, right? That's another conversation starter. A trickier one, but I bet you've experienced this before, right? But it definitely is a conversation stopper. It's that moment when they say, fine, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, I agree. That's good. I should do that. They will agree, but they're agreeing just to end the conversation, right? So you stop talking about it and nothing changes, right? And then, yeah, like I said, sometimes us as parents, we're getting angry for whatever reason. We're seeing what's happened or not happening. And a lot of times parents get into that conversation already feeling angry, right? Already being upset. And so that emotion can just like shut it down right away as well. Another one is conversation stopper is the subject changes, right? So this is a little bit different, but you're still talking, but now you're talking about something completely different, unrelated even to what needs to be talked about, right? You started talking about them getting a job, and somehow now you're arguing about something that happened 5 years ago, right? Or you're talking about, well, why didn't my sibling ever have to do this? And then you're talking about how you raised your other child, right? And so the conversation, maybe you're still talking, but the conversation that needed to happen stopped, right? And then another thing is also like you get into that big debate, right? It switched from talking about how to make changes to maybe talking about why this should even be the way our society is organized, right? It just gets into this debate about how things are structured, or why is this even a thing, and that's not what you need to be talking about. Okay? Or the big conversation starter is, or stopper, I keep saying that, is that it doesn't even start, right? Everybody is so used to having bad conversations that they avoid it altogether. So I know that's kind of a different category, but it's like there's not even a conversation, right? It stops before it even begins. So here's a thought. Which one of those happens in your family, right? What stops the conversations? Sometimes I get asked, like when I talk about this, like, well, what's the most common? I think it's more about patterns, right? So families tend to repeat the same patterns. And so if it's an emotional shutdown or something like that is happening, like, people are just getting so emotional and it turns into an argument or debate. That's the kind of thing that tends to happen. Or the family that tends to walk away, then they tend to do that. Or the family that just avoids and doesn't even want to start the conversation, right? Then that's kind of the pattern that they are stuck in. So it's really more about like, what is your pattern and recognizing it, right? There's another conversation stopper that is really, really big. Right? And I call it kind of like the false choice stopper. And what that is a situation, imagine you're talking with your young adult and they very quickly make this conclusion. Like they really don't want to do this thing that they need to be doing, or they don't want to face this thing they need to face. And when the parents bring it up, then they say, some version of, well, if I'm going to be forced to do this, well, I don't know what's going to happen, right? Or I'm going to get depressed again, right? Or, maybe even they say, I'm going to be suicidal again, right? And so that's an extreme. And it's like either I'm going to be able to avoid this, right? Either you're going to let me avoid this, or I'm going to go to an extreme of harming myself, or some other scenario, right? That's an extreme that they're saying. And the truth is, there is so much in between those two, right? But that can become a conversation starter, especially when it involves safety. Now, safety is an absolute priority, right? So I'm in no way saying overlook their statements of self-harm. In fact, you gotta pay attention to it. But the conversation needs to continue, right? You don't just shut down and stop because they kind of gave you that choice, right? That's a time to get curious, And that's something I want to talk about. Like, what do you do when you're in these situations where the conversation usually stops? Well, one of the things to do, especially in that false choice situation, is to get curious, right? Why do they feel they can't face it? Why do they feel that it's going to go to that extreme? You got to keep them talking. Now, a big point is there is wisdom in knowing when to have a conversation and when not to have a conversation. That's different than avoiding it altogether or it breaking down every time. One of the biggest things that I see, and if you think about this, well, everyone's done this, right? It's conversations are happening in the heat of the moment, right? They're happening when everyone's emotions are high. They're happening when you just found out that they didn't follow through with what they said they were going to do, right? Or they just broke that rule again, or whatever it is. Many times it's just too hot. It's too intense to have that conversation. And the conversation needs to shift to a different time. So what I try to encourage people to do is don't wait till things blow up to have a conversation. Have the conversation in times when things are more calm. But why don't a lot of people do that? Because it's calm. We don't want to have this difficult conversation and blow things up, right? Well, you're definitely not going to have success when the emotions are too high, right? So being willing to have that conversation. Sometimes you need to set it up. You say, hey, we're going to talk. Let's talk at this time. And yes, for some of you, like, well, we'll definitely avoid it then. If they know that this is when we're going to talk, they're going to make sure not to be there, keep the door locked. Patience and persistence, right? You got to keep trying. Just because one conversation didn't work doesn't mean you give up on it, right? But pay attention to that, right? When things are hot, when things are blowing up, excuse me, that is not the time to have the conversation, right? And so when you do have the conversation, you want to be more curious, right? You want to understand more about why your adult child sees things the way they do, right? Does anyone relate to that, right? Relate to those moments when, we had the conversation at the wrong time. Because sometimes I don't think families realize they're doing that's part of their pattern, right? The part of their pattern is we wait until things are front and center, right, to talk about things. But everyone's so emotional, they're so guarded that it's not successful. And then it's avoided until something else happens. And then we talk about it, but everyone's emotions are up. That's one of those patterns I'm talking about, right? One of those that we want to avoid. Being able to get into that conversation, a really good way of doing that is, instead of focusing on the failure or the lack of progress, to talk about, okay, so this thing didn't happen. Help me understand what got in the way. Help me understand why you're struggling. Why are you saying that this is important to do, but then it didn't happen? And if you're genuinely wanting to know, right, that comes across, right? You're not just you're not just saying that to share your frustration, but you genuinely want to know. And that's going to come across, but that's also going to give you very important information. Then you can get into what do we do next? How do we move forward? But still, there's going to be these intense moments, these moments full of tension, right? Where the conversation tends to be spiraling or going in the wrong direction. People are getting emotional. We're getting stuck. We're not talking. It's turning into an argument. That's where I encourage you to return to the foundation. That's the way I like to describe it, right? Return to the foundation. And what is the foundation? I love you. I care about you. I'm not trying to make your life more difficult, right? I want you to have the confidence that comes from being in control of your life, right? That's why we need to keep talking about this, right? That's your foundation. You love them. You care about them. You're trying to help them. And even if we're talking about doing something really difficult, you can acknowledge that. I know this is really difficult. I know this is hard, right? Maybe you can even put your own connection into it, right? Your own connecting to that story. I remember being so afraid or insecure, right? And afraid of failing. Right? I know what that feeling feels like. I'm not in exactly your situation, but I know how hard it can be to move forward or to take a step. But we need to do this. And I want to talk about it because I care about you, right? That's your foundation. And you might have to do that multiple times where you need to break back into, talking about the foundation. And I would encourage you, every time it seems to kind of derail or start to get off track, that's what you want to fall back into. And that's important and it's good. So, that's another really good thing, another really good way to just to keep the conversation going. So we're talking about why conversations stop, right? We're talking, you're trying to talk to your adult child. You're trying to talk about the things that need to be talked about, but they're not participating. Everyone's getting too upset. You're avoiding it, right? It breaks down, right? And so we talked about being able to pay attention to when you talk about things, right? If it's too hot, if it's too fresh, if it's in the moment, it's okay to say, we can talk about this later. But that's not avoidance because you're going to come back to it, right? Let's all calm down. Let's wait later today or something like that and talk about this. It's okay to do that. That's not a pattern of avoidance if you do come back to it, right? And then being able to be curious, like, why are you struggling? What's going on? Really get to know that. And then knowing that you can just drop back to that foundation. Here's why we need to talk about this, because I care about you. I love you. I'm trying to help you. And this is something that needs to happen, right? And pay attention also to not controlling the conversation, right? Meaning it's not just an opportunity to say, because this is one of the patterns I see, right? Where a parent sees every conversation as an opportunity to say, okay, here's what you're going to do. Here's how you're going to do it. Here's when you're going to do it by, and you better do it or else, and they put that's a one-way conversation. There are times when you do have to take the lead, and there are times when you need to deliver the message, but you don't want it to be that way all the time. Because one of the things you're trying to help your adult child do is independently figure things out, solve their own problems, find ways to motivate themselves, right? You need them to do that. So it's where you have a conversation that you're saying, okay, well, here's what needs to happen. What's your idea? And you need to have some flexibility there. Because if they haven't been doing it, and if they've had a bad approach, they're probably not going to have the best way. They're certainly not going to do it the way you would do it all the time. So in those situations, you need to be able to be patient and be flexible. Because if they're really trying, and that's good, right? That's a good thing, and they're participating, and so you can get there. You'll get there eventually. So it's like, what's your idea? What's your plan? What do you think would be reasonable? What's the first step that you want to take? And even, what do you think could get in the way of this? Right? Those are good conversations. And you can always pause. You can always come back. Right? If emotions get too high, we're not getting anywhere right now. I know this is a difficult conversation, so let's take a break. Let's talk about this more tonight. But the important part is you got to come back. You've got to come back to it. So the goal is not to force your way through a difficult conversation. It's to keep difficult emotions from permanently ending a conversation that needs to happen. So that's what I wanted to talk about this morning. I'm kind of curious also. We're even having some storms right now, and I know there's a lot of people, at least in our region of the country, that are without power right now. And I wonder how many people are dealing with that are part of this group. So it certainly put some challenges in me being able to talk to you guys tonight, or today, this morning. So we made it happen, right? It was just a chance to chat. So if there are any questions or any thoughts, I'm going to hang around just for a moment, and then I'm going to get back on the Facebook group, which I put the links in there if you want to join with that. And I'm going to kind of check in with them because we weren't able to do our talk last night. So we'll get to that tomorrow or tonight. Okay. Let me see what I can see on some Stream Health stuff here. All right. Looks like we're doing pretty good with this. I was really worried about the stream going through because we've been having the internet go in and out. But I think we got it off. So this was a good start. We'll be back. If you are available, I'm going to be back 10:30 tomorrow and every day of the week. That's the schedule. That's what we do. And that's our coffee chat. So it's been good chatting with you this morning. If you have any comments, anything that you want to put after the fact, I do read those, and many times that's what we talk about the next time. All right, I will talk to you later. You guys take care.